Well, hey guys. I guess this is also being recorded, so hold on. Let me just lower my music here. um, so I'm just trying to learn this for now. Um, so this is more of a dry run, more than anything. Let me just put my camera here. Uh, but essentially, just wanted to learn this because I'll be showing obviously medium at a much better cadence as I gain more time in my personal work and all that stuff. So I want to be able to show my process because I know there's a lot of questions and yeah, and certain live streams I just want it to be pretty casual. I sculpt. You guys hang out. If you have any questions, ask me. Or sometimes I want to do sort of like a like throw like a topic or a creature. I can try and sculpt something, just to kind of keep it fun. Maybe even do a sculpt studio share with other artists in a live stream. But for now, I'm just gonna work on this one, and I'm gonna look at the chat and try and answer any questions. It's gonna probably be a small number of people because from what Crystal's been saying, the link doesn't work. But I'm gonna go ahead and work on this, hang out, and then I'll figure out how this works eventually. But yeah. So let me okay. Alrighty. So I'm just gonna work on the back here. And I typically like to work with music on. Let's fix the light here. So today's music is going to be jazz, essentially. I usually base it on whatever mood I'm in, and for whatever reason, I'm in the mood for jazz tonight. So typically when I'm working on something like this, I'm just exploring the design really at this point. And the fun of this creature is I really have no idea of what he really looks like, so I'm just kind of like sketching it as I'm going along here. And sometimes I have a firm idea or a design, but for this one I just kind of wanted to have a go at it and test my design skills in medium on the fly. So as you can see, hold on. Bear with me here. Okay. I'm just pinning the chat here so I can see if there's any questions. Oops. Okay, so as you can see, I'm just applying these little, what I call livers of clay, with the purpose of just trying to kind of figure out the flow of the creature. So I'm always constantly turning around. I kind of wanted to give him a very hag-like vibe to the design, inspired heavily by Meg Mucklebones, which is a a character in the movie by Ridley Scott called Legend, a long time ago. This was in the 80s, starring Tom Cruise, Mia Sara, and Tim Curry. I mean, it's the movie with that famous demon design, Darkness, that Tim Curry played. But there's also a character there which may not be as well known as darkness, but in my opinion is one of the coolest damn creature ever put on celluloid. And her name is Meg Mucklebones. Designed, I believe, by Miles Teves. It's one of the coolest hag type creatures ever put on film. So definitely inspired by Meg Mucklebones. How this how this particular creature, which is a creature from the Black Lagoon, inspired design slash Meg Mucklebones. So as you can see, before even thinking about any detail or specific rendering style of work on my model, I'm just exploring with shapes. Just pure shape exploration here. And the beauty of medium, as you'll see, or as you're seeing, hopefully, is I'm able to explore non-destructively these shapes before committing to it. So I'm looking at this creature as a series of intersecting shapes. Just make sure this is as a series of intersecting shapes, right? Instead of like one smooth creature, you know, this is a shape, this is a shape, this is a shape, this is a shape, and so on and so forth. And this allows me to really design this thing with clarity and readability in mind. So, and you know, when say, let's resolve the torso area here. I'm gonna hide. Actually, let's group. I'm gonna start merging layers before it gets too messy, so we can also hide them. So I'm gonna hide this for now. Oop, yeah, hide. It's a little bit of a mess here because, you know, I'm I'm working in many layers. But let's say we're gonna mess around with the torso area here. Okay, I'm just reading your the chat here. Let me bring the window closer. Okay, so, and you know, feel free to ask any questions. I'm trying to get into cadence of looking at the chat and also working here. So let's resolve what's going on here. You know, what was my decision to put this shape on top of the main rib shape, right? Well, hopefully it pays off, because I had something in mind that I kind of wanted to test out here. So I'm going to merge those. So I'm going to select the different layers, hit merge. They are now one. And I'm going to do a smooth. So I was kind of thinking, you know, maybe it'll be interesting to have this kind of like Giger's xenomorph. You know, there's sort of like, it's not just a rib, a crescent rib. I kind of wanted to add a little bit more complexity to it. So first thing I'm going to do is, with the inflate tool here, subtractively, I'm just going to kind of draw some marks. And it may not work eventually, you know, at first. I'm kind of just trying to get a feel for, lightly get a feel for it. You know, trying to make sure that it abides by the flow of the, I'll put it here, sorry. It abides by the flow of the design of all the forms I've been putting on, right? You know, there's this echoing, I think this is a better view here. There's an echoing rhythm to everything, hopefully, you know, as you can hopefully see. So I'm just trying to be obedient to that. So I smooth it out. And I'm thinking maybe it'd be cool if there were air vents here. So I'm just gonna push this in. Sort of like another breathing apparatus or a breathing system for this creature. So I'm going to take the move tool and kind of model that a little bit more, you know, so that it's a shaft going inside. Okay, and then maybe new layer. Oops. Reinforce it with this particular form here. That's the beauty of Medium is I'm working with what I have, right? With the stamps that I have and using certain shapes to subtract the stamps into a shape that I specifically want. So you're always creating new things. So I'm going to duplicate that. Duplicate. And it's like working with real clay, essentially. You know, a very different manner of working than in ZBrush or more polygonal style of modeling. And not necessarily better or worse. It's just different. And I think that's the thing that I think people need to realize when they're working with Medium is it is a very different paradigm of modeling, you know, versus a ZBrush where you're pulling the surface from the surface out. In Medium, it is more like clay. You're additively adding geometry. So I'm before, you know, getting too specific with it, I'm kind of just like looking to see if this is going to work. So I'm not even going to fully commit to it. So zoom out. I'm like, okay, that could possibly work. And then what I'll do is I'm going to reinforce the remainder of the ribs with more forms. So as you can see, I'm syncing the form using it as a using the intersection point, you know, that really sharp intersection point between layer 1 and layer 2 to my advantage. I really am after that strong intersection point because that's really what's going to bring out the sharpness of the forms when they're all blended in together. So, you know, rather than just leaving it like this, I never do that. I always, those are just what I call landmarks before reinforcing it with the real McCoy here of actual forms. And that's really what'll make your sculptures feel more dimensional instead of a series of just flat marks to indicate form. You're actually using those marks as sort of like a map for where those forms really should be. So who knows what it's going to look like. Anyway, let's see. I'm going to read. Oh, shit. Okay. Oh, man. Was I just. Here we go. Sorry. I think the camera was. The camera was not directed at the sculpture here. Sorry, guys. I'm just getting used to this. But so I'm just, as you can see, just putting new form here. So let's go ahead and collapse, not knowing really what it's going to look like. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to merge these and hope that it doesn't crash. And what what? Oh. Okay, here we go. Yeah, I'm reading the chat, so it's better now. So what I usually would do is go overboard so I can smooth it all down. So I'll knock down the strength of my smooth a little bit here. But, you know, like I have no problem just really softening these things until it almost feels like it's flat to the surface again. You know, it's almost like you're taking a blowtorch and softening the clay, right? Okay, so I'm gonna make sure I got a good view here. And then from here, it's like rinse and repeat. I would just go ahead and continue on and re-establish the divisional areas again. But always running smooth on it. So, you know, we're going for a little bit more of a xenomorphy Giger vibe with this torso with these air shafts here. And what I like to do as well is use inflate to start drawing on the surface. As you can see, when I'm making my mark, I'm not, you know, say I'm doing this, I'm not just leaving it here, I'm dragging it. There's always that fall off. Knock down the strength here. Just really, really lightly bringing back the look of that pipe right now. That nice, clean, accelerated highlight right there. Right? And then maybe it's an opportunity for us to start adding new secondary shapes. Just lightly indicating sort of like a lip. Yeah, I think that kind of works. So let's see it with the arms. Let's see. That's the thing about this piece is there's a lot of layers already. Let's see. Come on, light. I'm going to increase the setting to the brightness. Yeah. So yeah, no, I may change it later on, but I think for the purpose of this demo, it works. So anyway, let's go ahead and flesh out the back here. And when I'm doing work, this is the stuff that really that I really fixate on, like twists of flesh. I don't know what you would call this, but and I could spend hours or days even just trying to resolve how how form twists and compresses, you know. And for me, this is a much more worthwhile endeavor than putting detail in it. And as you can see, I work very lightly. um, my settings aren't like to 100, and even then, you know, medium is still very subtle, but I usually kick the strength down to about 38, because I like to go over my marks repeatedly. So, and I'm always looking at the highlight here. And then from there, let's go ahead and so I'm looking at 1, 2, 3, 4 forms. All right. So typically, you know, you might think, oh, Gio's done. Nope, I don't stop there. Being the obsessive compulsive person that I am. Oops. I don't know why my PC is whirring right now. It's worrying me. So as you can see, I'm using this classic medium stamp. We've had this since version 1, I believe, and it's one of my favorite stamps. But I just stretched it into beyond its form, into maybe the beginnings of this fish trapezius, whatever you want to call it. You know, we're not really abiding by any an accurate anatomy here. You know, this is fantasy time here, so I'm just making stuff up right now, having fun. Allowing myself to take what I know of human anatomy and playing with it. You know, I think that is a very important aspect of this kind of work. Is, you know, I know we tend to really study human anatomy, and you know, there's a lot of study. It's a lifetime worth of study. But there's also the aspect of feeding your imagination, you know, and really there's, once you know anatomy and are able to play with it and bend it into something interesting and artful, then really that's an opportunity for you to really accentuate the human form into whatever it is, creature, weird human, something abstract. And as I'm putting these, I'm thinking about how they interact with each other. Um, you know, it's not just like, okay, form, form, form. Now that I have these blocked in, what is this top form doing to the bottom form? Right now they look just like they're flat. I want to have some form of interactivity. So maybe it'd be cool if top form here. So sorry if that my throat is pretty dry. So I know when I clear my throat, you guys are probably like, "Oh Jesus!" The spike of sound blasts your ears. So I apologize for that. But anyway, I'm thinking about how do these forms press up against each other, and this is why this could take me days to do, because I would just go through certain sections, say that especially the shoulder girdle or the back part of the shoulders. That's a very complex thing to resolve. But for now, I'm not gonna go all super duper obsessive on it. Okay, just checking that you guys are still able to see it. And if you guys have any questions, let me see. All right, well, let's say we're good with this, which I'm not, but for the sake of this demo, I'm going to collapse it. Merge. So they're now one. It's time to start smoothing, selectively smoothing. So I really want to communicate the tension of this shoulder. Oops. It'd be cool. I'm already seeing something interesting here where it'd be cool if this form kind of rides underneath this. God, I hope my computer doesn't crash. It's making a lot of noise. So I'm just going to put a form there. Call it my pill form. Nakpil form. I'm kidding. Sorry. If I start talking to myself, I start saying cheesy things. So I apologize, guys. Okay, so again, getting a sense of this going underneath, right? Establishing hierarchy. Say we're good with that. I'm going to soften this area, but leave the contrasty nature of this tension, compression. And I'm cool with mostly smoothing those forms here, until they're almost flat, because the highlights still separate them. But I do want that tight highlight. It's almost like skin hugging all these forms together. So I'm kind of just selectively smoothing out the midpoints. Let me see. Okay, are you guys still able to see the chat? Okay, I think we're still on. I'm just going to keep going. Okay. And then this sort of exposed shoulder blade right here, I'm going to start putting some hard contrasty shapes. Just making sure the view that I have isn't being cropped. And this is key for me when I'm adding, you know, when people look at my work in Medium, they're like, man, how did you get it to look not mushy? You know, like, because, you know, Medium it takes a while to really figure it out in terms of getting models to look sharp, I guess. So this is what I do. So I select, it's the contrast of hard and soft shapes, right? So this, let's say, would be sort of hard, more protruding cartilage or bone. And also what I like to do is this particular stamp right here. I can even accent that, then soften it so that there's a peak. Maybe give it some kind of irregular, you guys able to see this? Irregular noise, and smoothing it. Little tips and tricks for y'all there. Just cut through that. Yeah, so, you know, kind of figured it'd be cool if this was sort of like fairly exposed, whatever that shoulder blade thing is. And then there's here, I mean, I figured this session is just going to be all about form, just kind of playing with what we have here, blah. And then future more formal sessions, I can have a more kind of focus on, you know, like an overall, like, how would I block this in? You know, like, what do I start with, or start from scratch, like a head? We can do that tomorrow or whenever I do this next, like a monster from scratch. But what's great about like what I'm seeing here is, okay, well, it always gives me a new idea to, you know, these are vaguely indicated, but I'm like, oh, okay, now that I look at this, it'd be cool if using the inflate here, I'm kind of just accenting, you know, sort of divisional muscles, probably. There's a sort of fishy teres major here. So I'm just spelling it out even more, right? I really don't want to merge this yet, but I kind of feel like it'll be cool to nah, let's save that next time. I was like debating whether or not to merge this whole thing so we can work on this whole interaction here, which is, it's pretty juicy. But I'm not ready yet, because that's going to inconvenience me when it comes to not being able to hide the this arm when I'm working on the rib, you know, or the rib cage, I should say. But again, like as you can see, I'm putting putting these forms to really indicate compression areas. And that is honestly something I don't see enough in CG models. In my honest opinion, this for me is the fun stuff. You know, people, and for me also the most impactful thing you can ever do. A lot I'm seeing focus on details, and you know that's the age-old thing us oldies in the industry say. Oh, don't focus on the details, but really, there's a lot of truth into that. You know, I think like for me, I don't even think about detail until like the last 10% of the work. This is the work. This is design. You know, it's not design is not when you're in pour mode doing pours. This is the bulk of the work that you should be spending your energy in. Rant over. Let's see. Okay. So, I mean, you know, it's just loosely indicated, but I think, you know, I can already see what it's going to look like when I smoothen it. So I'm just putting it here mostly for annotation. You know, when I'm ready to get back to this area, I can like, okay, this is what I was thinking here, and then let's move on, right? So kind of wanted to start putting some really cool, let's see, debating whether I should merge this rib cage. Yeah, why the hell not? So I'm going to smooth this. So let's add some latissimus dorsi, or dorsey, whatever. To be honest, I'm not really, my anatomy knowledge is very, very rusty. Very rusty. I am in dire need of actually taking another anatomy class. You know, Scott Eaton or Alicia Ponzio, or yeah, I've been doing too many monsters to remember the important anatomy. All right, I'm gonna merge these. Okay, let's see. Okay, I'm going to use inflate. Kind of wanted to carry. I'm going to carry the rhythm, the vibe of what's going on here. Which we should hide this. Okay, and this and this. So it's kind of there's an indication of a lat here, which I'm gonna cut through, and then fish anatomy. So I don't know what the hell this part. It's fish anatomy, okay? It's scientifically proven. Okay. So I'm establishing a series of secondary forms. But I actually like what's going on here. You know, there's a stretch, a feeling of stretch. And what I could do is I could just accent that. I even I even like how there's a triangle coming here, which, you know, if you here, let me see. If you think about it, there's like this massive form going this way, and then this group of forms going this way, and it's compressing, it's accordioning this area right here, which is really cool. So what in my head now, what I'm like, okay, it'd be cool if there's a really sharp undercut here, because you know, say this rib area is almost like overhanging on this clump of flesh. So that wasn't planned. That just kind of happened, and I'm like, okay, let's. And that's pretty much most of how my form ideas happen. As I see areas like that I don't really plan, and kind of go, hey, that'd be cool. Am I still streaming? Yeah, I'm still live. All right, let me see. Let me just see the chat here. Okay. Okay. I'm just reading the sculpt here. Alrighty. Thank you all for attending. So I'm going to work on this area right here. Oops. Yeah. And I really want to create this overhang here. Push this a little bit. The original. So what I'm doing is I'm just recreate, just as I would in clay, right? So again, this is a very different way of working. I mean, a lot of ZBrush users there, including me, if say, you know, this was Gio when he didn't really use medium, and I'm watching this right now, someone doing this right now, I'd be like, what the hell? This is so different from what I'm used to. But really, that's the beauty of it, because it flexes another side of your sculptural thinking, that in my opinion is a little bit more closer to sculpture. You know, I think ZBrush is amazing, but I think the way in which you do things in ZBrush is more of an illustration based, where, you know, Wacom to surface, and that is amazing, you know, and that is the medium of ZBrush, you know, no pun intended. Whereas medium, because you are using your hands, is definitely closer to sculpture. And again, there is nothing, not saying that one is better than the other, you know, that I'm really not saying that, because I will never ever take anything away from ZBrush. ZBrush is amazing for what it does, and medium is still new in the game, and you know, there's still a lot of sort of things that the tool can benefit from improving. But the advantages of being able to use your hands, your actual hands, is really it can't be beat, in my opinion. You know, for this kind of work, and you come out of it a better sculptor because you're just as you would if you were doing this in real clay. You know. Let me adjust the light here. It's too contrasty. So, you know, I just want to get the sense that this thing is wrapping. I'm not even going to stop there. I'm seeing, okay, there's this, again, mini triangle here in this area. It'd be cool if that was a little bulgy. Merge. Think of it as little dabs of clay you're putting. Okay. And move the light around. Let me see. I'm going to unhide the arm. I really should name these better next time. There we go. It's a bit too noisy, so I'm going to consolidate some of these shapes. Yep. Okay, let's work a little bit on the head here. So for the head, I have the head in the mirror axis. It's the only part that I'm working symmetrically on. Sorry guys, I'm just trying to make sure that it's visible. Okay. So I've always felt the head, just for context, this was the same head that I did during my Gnomon live stream. So I was like, oh, it's pretty interesting. I should do something with it. I was fairly happy with how it looked, but in looking at it, you know, it looked a bit too tame. So I made it into a bit more creature-like design. And I even want to go a little farther with it. Like it just feels a bit too tame, you know. So I want to add maybe like a harder. Maybe instead of this, let's use the box here. And sometimes I used a box for more cartilagey or bony areas of the structure. Skull structure. Oops. Okay. And you know, I'm looking at the edge here, but I'm going to soften that a bit. What I want to do is create an accent. A little bit more of an aggressive if you can see, looking at my viewfinder here, a little bit more of an aggressive vibe to how this cheekbone just kind of leads your eyes to the teeth, which we'll adjust later. These are a bit too dainty. So and then I'm gonna move the chat window because it's interfering with my view. Oops, sorry. Okay, all right. And to make things speedy, you guys have probably seen me do it, but I usually duplicate what's there instead of recreating it, and I'm just offsetting it. You know, if say I wanted to have an echoing kind of a pattern, and do it again. And sometimes I'm like, oh, why am I even doing this? But I'm kind of like, okay, well, I'm just gonna trust my intuition. You know, that's the thing about how I work is I try not to overthink things. I just kind of based on where my where the forms are leading me. You know, it may sound a bit corny, but it's essentially I'm pretty much always in obedience to where the flow is dictating what I add. And that is really what's important about establishing some semblance of flow, you know. And you know, this area isn't really as resolved, but you know, the flow of it's a Baroque spiral, right? So my hope is that when you turn around the model, all these forms are leading your eyes somewhere, and that propagates all the way to the face, even though it's not in motion. It's a static. I mean, not static, but it's, you know, it's not like bendable like a spine, right? But I'm still adding some form of rhythm to this. Okay, let's say that's the shape. I'm gonna merge, and I haven't saved, so I better save. That would suck if I lose everything here. But you know, second time's a charm. All right, but I didn't want to smoothen that too much. Let me just paint this the same color. Oops. Oops. Oh man, I accidentally. Ugh. How did I do that again? I accidentally made inflate my smooth. I think it's, oh, there we go. For my toggle, I should say. And I'm going to start sketching some ideas of like, okay, maybe in this bony branch off here. Let's see. I'm going to switch to, let's see here, head mode. Try something different. All right. So I'm not constantly worrying about if I'm in frame or not. Sometimes I'm kind of like, okay, let's sketch in some ideas for possible scale. Like maybe, you know, like maybe let's block it in right now. Oops. Kind of like this kind of deal. And as you can see, I'm just being very what's the word? Bold with the details. I'm not really being too precious about things, you know? Like yeah, let's put it there, you know? I have no problem merging it because we could always redo it. It's clay. It's not permanent. Nothing's ever permanent here. So, you know, in exploring the design, I have no problem, even though that's sort of like sketchy. Let's put it in. Let's go over here. If you guys have any questions, I can. So there's a question that on the chat. So first you define muscle fibers, then selectively smooth places that have low tension. Yes, that is correct. So let's say, for example, yeah, let's do it here. Some kind of, there's these series of forms. As you can see, I'm already kind of like, okay, well, trying to get an idea. You know, it's vaguely defined right now, but I'm trying to kind of like, okay, let's carve it all in. And then we're going to start doing the pill trick. Start putting in a pill here. And again, not to beleaguer the point. Oh man, I'm looking at the camera, but I forgot. It's in my headset now, so you guys are seeing exactly what I'm seeing. Apologies for that. Not to beleaguer the point, but you know, with what I'm after is the precious peak apex that I'm distorting. That concavity, or no, convexity, I should say. So duplicate. As you can see, it's faster that way, right? Instead of like new layer, blah, blah, blah. I'm just duplicating it. Kind of like, okay, well, I'm looking at it from all angles here. I don't want it to be too bulgy. That is something I definitely avoid. I still want to have it almost flat to the surface. You know, forms that are too bulgy, you know, it's like when kids draw clouds. It starts looking that way and it becomes too noisy. I want to always preserve the readability that I've so worked hard on to establish with the primary shapes and all that stuff. Okay, so they say there's these two forms here. Merge that with a main head. And to answer your question, Bengi, I start with start smoothing places with low tension. So if I think about, okay, before I even apply smooth, I have to identify what are the tension areas here, areas of tension, I should say. There's a compression here. So I'll probably most likely retain that dark shadow because, you know, like this whole mass is bearing down on this mass the way I see it. Could change. So keeping that, there's probably going to be high tension here because this because this, in my opinion, would be cool if it rode underneath this. this form. Well, what is this, Gio? This form. So there's going to be an undercut here. Let's say. Tuck that in. All right. It's going to be an overhang. So merge. Oops. Merge. So we now have these series of forms that are a bit too noisy. Let me just save this. Oops, scratching my nose here. It's hard with this headset, but and so what I'll do is start on exactly what you said, non-tension areas, right? So if you think about skin wrapping around all these forms here, where would the skin, meaning the smooth skin, is where the most stretch it's going to be. And then I'm going to leave, oh man, that's interesting, you know, like leave that there. Oops. Pinch. So I kind of want to just, and honestly, I don't mind if it totally smoothens out because I can always come back to it again. Maybe this smoothens out as, you know, this compression kind of spreads this way as this goes to the maw, right? That's kind of interesting. Although I feel it's a little bit too much going on now. And that's my process. I'm kind of like, okay, well, did what I do just cause more trouble than good? And in which case, I have no problem just going, okay, roll up my sleeves and not get too attached to it, right? I would rather redo things, even though this, say, took me, I don't know, 2 hours, 3 hours. If it's not working, I have zero problem. I'm always looking there as if the camera's still there. I should look at here. Sorry, guys. I have zero problem redoing even a day's worth of work if it means it's going to end up looking better than it should. So never get too attached. Don't ever fall in love with especially the details, right? Fall in love with the overall pose and the important parts, but never really the superfluous things such as small areas like this, you know. So I want to bring the tension back to this area that I lost because I added too many of those forms. Man, for a first live stream, this is a bit too long now. What are we? 1:15. I'll probably cut this off in 20 minutes, let's say. So I want to bring the readability back. So what I did was I tamed all of them here because, like, if you guys can remember, there's so many things going on. So I just cleared that up. I'm even clearing out these, like, I call them, like, you know, like kid cloud forms where it's like whoop whoop. I tend to want to avoid that. I kind of want to mostly have clean curvature. And then maybe like this curve goes here, then I'm feeling whoop, there's a cool kink. We can that's the thing when I have an idea, like I better do it now before I forget it. You know, this accent that there was a cool like break here that I think would be cool. You know, it's almost like cartilage. And then let's kind of resolve what's going on here. You know, there's in the highlights, I'm seeing already like opportunities for some cool compression lines. Whoop. See that? I like to make the sound effects. Whoop. These radiating compression lines. I think the thing about this Rift microphone is it's super sensitive that even when I gulp, you can hear me gulp. It's very nice and intimate live stream here, guys. All right. Undo. Here we go. And these are areas that, you know, as I'm doing this in my head, well, when I'm in the phase of tertiary forms where I'm adding scale, because I want to add scales to this thing, you know, I'm trying to imagine how those scales are going to actually, you know, radiate along this guy's head. So I'm using the inflate tool here to just accent right now. Okay, so I'm smoothing, rinse and repeat, carve, maybe hitting areas a little harder for compression. You know, maybe around here there's like this thing is bearing down on these shapes, thus causing sort of more of an accordion. You know, if you notice when I'm applying my marks, it's very loose. It's like when you're gesture drawing, right? Your drawing instructor is always telling you to keep it loose, not like, you know, put some wrist into it. Don't just really start digging in and start bringing out the features of this guy. Well, that's looking kind of neat. You know, it gives a good contrast to what's going on in front, right? There's a lot of compression here, and then boof, it frees up where this area is, so it creates a nice contrast. So it leads your eye down to where it matters, which is his face. Just thought of that, made that up, made it sound like it made sense, I hope. No, I'm kidding. And then, of course, obviously, the old pill trick. Well, I didn't think I'd be yapping so much, guys. Hopefully y'all aren't. Just model Gio. Just shut your mouth and well, fine then. Jeez. No, I'm kidding. All right, I'm gonna duplicate that. And someone asked this in the forums actually. The move tool. If you move your thumbstick to the left, that's a better view here. Instead of up and down, which is fast anyway, but if I just really want to go, I want a big grab tool, I want a small grab tool. It's easier to thumbstick left, it bases it on your arm movement instead of, oh, it's like the elevator. You're at the mercy of the lift going up and down. This one's like you can control, and then just lift that up. And again, thinking of hierarchy and influence. How do these forms influence each other? And medium is a medium, like losing steam here. I'm slurring my words, guys. But medium is essentially perfect for that, as you can see. Go blip, 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 merge, and smoothen. Smoothen to flatten, as I like to call it. You want to flatten those, when it just kind of spreads into outside of those tension areas. I just want to flatten that peak. And it's too even, so that was a fail. But I think what it did was it created a fuller set of forms that I could just go add an inflate, and I'll revisit that again later on. So I was disappointed in that one. Actually, that kind of did it when I just reinforced it with the inflate tool. That's still too symmetrical. Let's see. Can you share the spec of the PC and Oculus model you're using for sculpting? I'm currently using the Rift S, and in terms of the spec of my computer, I don't know off the top of my head. I can share that in the forums or my Facebook page. So as you can see, like, I'm just essentially working on forms right now, and eventually, I want to take this all the way to detailing, to how would you use medium to, like, we're in like makeup effects land now of Rick Baker style, just adding a lot of the scales, the fun part. So I can definitely show that, because there's a lot of really cool, amazing things you can do with medium on that front. That again is going to be different from what us ZBrush users, I should say, are used to. I like to do these highlights right here. Smooth. Resolution probably needs to be higher on the head, which we could do next time. But so yeah, movement. I'm doing things to really lead your eyes to the mouth here. It's almost like arrow, right? And using lines to do so, or these rhythm lines. Adding some tension. This will be fun, this nose thing. I always love coming up with weird noses in some of my creatures. Just weird anything, really. Let's see. Oh, sorry, I'm reading. How did you set up the head in symmetry while building the pose? I essentially started with the head symmetrically and, sphere symmetrically, worked on the head, and then the rest I went off symmetry pretty quickly. All right, so I think for now we'll call this one call this a session right now. So we did the back part here, which that's the thing about working asymmetrically. I'm like, okay, I got to redo all that stuff on this side. Same with the ribs. But whatever, this was a choice that I made to work asymmetrically, and I would highly suggest that y'all CG character artists out there, try it. It's I think it's an essential thing to do. We can't always be fearful of asymmetry. That's the thing I've noticed, even with myself. Like, man, this model's not symmetrical. What am I going to do? Because this stuff is hard. I gotta be honest. But this is something that people working in clay, they do. And really, what makes their work masterful is that when they do this and build the tolerance for it, then you become a lot more fearless with anything you do in CG with T poses, right? I found that I've become a lot more decisive with everything that I do, because I go through the exercise of doing this kind of work. And CG, tends to force us to be very conservative, even with design. But nothing like taking it off symmetry to make you really go, okay, it's off symmetry anyway. I couldn't care any less if it's off rig or whatever. It's just gonna be fun. Right? So yeah, I guess all that to say, I would highly suggest maybe ZBrush, Medium, Blender, Mudbox to work asymmetrically. Free yourself from the T-pose once in a while. I'm just using the inflate tool to really work the subtle highlights and flow of this area right here. This pinch is going to be pretty cool, so I'm going to go up. As you can imagine, once I merge this the deltoid group into this area right here, it's going to give me some really nice further interactions with the forms. Yeah. So I'm always looking at it, always going, no, it's not working. Never falling too in love with anything. That's a dangerous thing, because it means you're settling. And when you settle, you're not getting the most out of your art or in life. Always look for the possibilities of what this could be, and if your gut tells you that it's not really working, then follow that gut. Anyway, enough ramble for me. I think that's gonna be it. So one last look on this thing. Let's get rid of these orbs that it did not end up getting used. Okay. Always looking at the highlight. Yeah, it's going to be a mean looking guy. But yeah, still a lot of work on them, on this guy. Like there's still the arms, legs, torso, fins. Yeah, but anyway, thank you again for watching and also attending my first live session test, I should say. But yeah, so keep an eye out on my Facebook page or Instagram or Twitter once I figure out how to put out a working link. Because as Crystal mentioned kindly, that the link I posted on Facebook did not really work. So I'll figure this out and streamline the process a bit more. And I'll be doing a mixture, just to kind of give you guys a preview of what I plan to do is I'm going to be doing a mixture of this type of just like jam sessions. Maybe I'll even put in some music because I love working to music and just kind of chatting and talking to you guys. And I'm also going to be doing sort of a more formal like A to B sort of demo of like, okay, this is how to use the move tool or whatever other questions you guys may have along the way, or kind of like, this is how I construct a head, blah blah blah, right? Rather than the more free-form style that we went through with this one. But anyway, enough blathering, and good night to anyone on Pacific Standard Time. And hello to you all who again attended, and again, thank you.